Hello guys, how are you all? Hope all of you are well. Please stay safe, stay at home as much as possible. Welcome to my lecture series. Let me introduce myself. I'm Rinki Bhaumik, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, GIS College of Engineering. The name of the paper is Physics 2, paper code is PH301. Here paper name, paper code is given again. 3 credit, 3 lectures per week. Total 36 number of lectures will be there. Prerequisite knowledge of physics up to physics BTech first year, physics 1. The course objective is the physics 2 course will provide the exposure to the physics of material that are applied in digital circuitry. Storage devices, exposure to the physics of quantum logic gate operation, quantum computation, and insight into the science and technology of next generation, foundations of electromagnetic theory and communication system, concepts of fundamental particles and associated application in semiconductors. So by going through this physics 2 course, you can get to know about this storage device, logic gate operation, quantum computation, which will help you to understand your core subject in future, and also it will help you to understand the application of the theory in the industry. Now this is a course outcome. 1, 2, 3, 3 outcomes are there. These are CO. Define, understand and explain electrostatic, magnetostatics, electromagnetic theory, operator, formalism in quantum mechanics, and so on. Here apply the knowledge of vector space, Heisenberg representation in developing knowledge of quantum bit, its representation, tunnel diode magnetism, semiconductors, analyzing the role of superposition principle in generation of large number of qubits, the principle of display device. This is COPO mapping, and this is the result. By mapping we can get this result. These are the course modules: quantum mechanics 2, quantum computation, communication, statistical mechanics, electricity, magnetism, physics of nanomaterials. So these are the name of the chapters which we have to discuss elaborately. Here, storage and display device, this is totally related with your core subject. Electricity, magnetism, there are 4 sub-modules, and physics of nanomatter also there. We'll discuss about it. So this is about the total course module. So let's start today's lecture. Hello guys, hope all of you are well in this pandemic situation. Please stay safe, stay at home as much as possible. Welcome to my lecture series. Let me introduce myself first. Myself Rinki Bhaumik, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, GIS College of Engineering. In my first lecture, today we are going to discuss about some new topic, but before that I will show you about the paper name, paper code, lesson plan, about your syllabus. Then I will start the new topic. The name of the paper is Physics 2, paper code is PH301 for CSE and IT second year. The lectures will be only for CSE and IT second year. And this is about the name of the paper Physics 2, which I already mentioned. This is about the paper code PH301, 3 credit, 3L means 3 lectures per week, and total number of lectures will be 36. And now we'll discuss about a very new chapter, electricity and magnetism. That will be your first class. But before that, let me show you about the lesson plan. So this is the lesson plan. Here in the first lecture, in the first class, my lesson plan is will discuss about the first year topic and also introductory lecture illustrating importance of the course content in respect of related engineering stream. Some basic vector calculus, gradient, divergence, curl and their physical significance, Gauss's divergence theorem. Then video on scalar and vector field, a video showing examples of scalar and vector field. Forces between two charges, Coulomb's law of electrostatics in vector form, curl of electrostatic field, Gauss's law in integral form, then equation of continuity, a video on action of capacitor, solve problem on parallel capacitor, solution of problems related to spherical and cylindrical capacitors. So thus I have planned for 36 lectures. Also Lorentz force, here magnetic vector and scalar potential, solution of problems on force, then magnetic behavior, then Faraday's law, integral and differential form, physical interpretation, then Maxwell's third equation discussion, plane of polarization, then a open discussion on two types of particles available in the universe, then concept of energy levels, energy states, phase space, MBB, FD statistics, Fermi distribution at zero and non-zero temperature, then nanorange, nanoparticles, physics of nanoparticle is there in your syllabus, I'll show you. Then speciality of a quantum dot, various application of the nanoparticles. Then we'll start about the statistical mechanics, and before that quantum mechanics also, Schrodinger equation in time dependent form, showing one video on interpretation of average value. This is about total 36 lectures. A lesson plan is there. We'll try to follow this lesson plan. Now let me show you the syllabus. The paper name, paper code, credit I already mentioned. This is course objective. Okay, so the physics 2 course will provide the exposure to the physics of materials that are applied in digital circuitry and storage device, exposure to the physics of quantum logic, gate operation, quantum computation, and insight into the science and technology of next generation, foundations of electromagnetic theory and communication systems, concept of fundamental particles and associated application in semiconductor. This is the course outcome. This is very important. In the first, there are 3 CO, CO PH 301.1, this is 2, this is 3. So here in the CO1, define, this is apply of knowledge, where you can apply, means the syllabus through which you are going to study, with respect to that study, what you can define, okay, where you can apply the knowledge, what you can analyze, all these you can be able to know about this total by this total CO. Okay, now next, this is about the COPO mapping. This is about the syllabus, where first is quantum mechanics. There are 2 submodules, quantum mechanics 2, quantum computation and communication. Next is statistical mechanics, basics of statistical mechanics, application of statistical mechanics, storage and display device, electricity and magnetism, which will start today. First is electrostatics, then magnetostatics, then electromagnetism and electromagnetic theory, then application and polarization, then physics of nanomaterial. These are the recommended books which you can purchase if you need. Otherwise you can follow our lectures also. So this is about the total syllabus of your course. Now today we are going to start about the topic which is electricity and magnetism. This is very interesting and very important chapter. A huge numericals we have to do the practice in this chapter. If you don't do it, then we'll suffer. So that's why we have to know the theory as well as we have to do the numericals also. So let's start the chapter today. In the first lecture, I would like to start with electricity and magnetism chapter. To start the chapter, first we have to discuss about some mathematical operation, that is gradient, divergence and curl. So these are the contents: gradient, divergence, curl and solenoidal and irrotational fields. Today we are going to discuss about these topics. So let me start with gradient of a scalar field. So what is gradient? Gradient is simply, as I already said, that it's nothing but a mathematical operation. But which kind of operation is this, that we have to first know. First of all, here as we can see, there is a new symbol, that is nebula symbol. Okay, so now when this nebula operates on a scalar function, that is f, which can be a function of x1, x2, x3 or up to xn. Okay, now when this nebula, this is basically an operator. When this operator operates on a scalar function f, then it is called as gradient. So let me show you the form of this operation. So grad f, that is gradient of that scalar field f. So if we do this operation, then the form is like this. This is simply I cap, j cap and k cap. This is del f by del x, that is partial derivative. Now if you do this in one dimension, then it will be del f by del x. Now if you consider two dimension, then it will be del f by del x plus j cap del f by del y. Now if you consider three dimension, basically we are in 3-dimension world, So here if we do this, if you consider 3 dimension, then the form is like this, and by this form we can easily say that by this operation we can get only a vector quantity. This is simply grad f is nothing but a vector quantity. So here if we do this operation, here we can get the vector quantity. So this scalar quantity, from this scalar quantity we can get a vector quantity. So this is about the gradient. Now next, what is divergence? What is divergence? So here first, to introduce divergence we consider f. F equal to p I cap plus q j cap plus r k cap. Now this is simply a vector. Okay, so this is the vector. Now I will do this operation like divergence. Now how actually it looks and what's the form? So this is the divergence form. Now the divergence form, div, this is the short form. Okay, now when we do this divergence on a vector f, then we can write it as divergence f is equal to del p by del x plus del q by del y plus del r by del z, where p, q, r are actually the magnitudes along I cap, j cap and k cap, which I already have shown by the vector f. So this is about the divergence f. Now by this form we can easily say that this is nothing but a scalar quantity. Though by the gradient we have got actually the vector quantity, but by this operation, which is your divergence, by this divergence we can only get here the scalar quantity. So what I am trying to say actually, that by the gradient we can get vector quantity, but by the divergence we can get the scalar quantity. So this is about the divergence. Now this is the form of nebula I cap del del x, j cap del del y, k cap del del z. Why I am showing you that when we'll apply the divergence on a vector f, then this form can be written also by this symbol nebula dot f. Nebula dot f. Dot signifies the divergence. If there is any dot, we have to understand that this is nothing but the divergence operation. So this is the form of nebula, and this is the form or the symbol of the divergence operation, which is nothing but the scalar quantity, which I already said. Now this is simply a physical significance of the divergence, means why I am doing this divergence, isn't it? So we have to know the physical significance of the divergence. Now here it's written here, divergence is a vector operator that measures the magnitude of the vector field source or sink. I already said that divergence gives us the scalar quantity, so that's why by this line also we can understand it also, that magnitude of a vector field source or sink. Magnitude means what we know, that this is a scalar quantity. So this gives us the magnitude of the vector field source or sink at a given point. Now next is divergence represents the volume density of the outward flux. What is flux? Actually I will discuss it in my next lectures. But what actually divergence gives us, the outward flux of a vector field. So this gives us the density of the outward flux of the vector field from an infinitesimal volume around a given point. So if we have a volume or a particular surface, then we can get the volume density of the outward flux of a vector field. Now our next discussion is on curl. So what is curl? Again, this is a mathematical operation, but there is a difference between divergence and curl. So curl actually is a vector operator. It's also written here, see, vector operator that describes the infinitesimal rotation. See here, rotation is the keyword here, okay, so we can't neglect it. This gives us the infinitesimal rotation of a three-dimensional vector field, and also at every point in that field the curl of that point represents a vector. That means by this operation, what I am trying to say, by this operation we can get the vector quantity, not the scalar quantity like divergence. So here we can get the vector quantity. This also the attributes of this vector characterize the rotation of that point. It's like the first point, okay. So here rotation will come several times, okay. So that's why this is a very important word or keyword of curl, okay. Now the direction of the curl is the axis of rotation. See, every rotation must have some axis, isn't it? So the rotation of the axis and the direction of the curl both are same. So if we have to show the direction of the curl, then we have to find out the axis of the rotation, and that can be determined by the right hand rule, which we already know, right-handed screw rule. And the magnitude of the curl is the magnitude of that rotation. So if every vector must have some direction and must have some magnitude. So here by the curl, what is the magnitude of that curl? The magnitude of that curl is the magnitude of the rotation. So if we can calculate the magnitude of the rotation, then we can get the magnitude of the curl. So this is the form of that curl, where we can see curl F. So this is the matrix form from where we can get this one. So if we expand this matrix, then we can get this form. So this form we can use to calculate the curl of any vector. So we have to remember this form of that curl. Now there is a new term, irrotational vector. So when I will call a vector as irrotational vector, when curl F means the curl of any vector, if we get 0, then that vector will be called as irrotational vector. Now if any vector we can get as an irrotational vector, then F can be said as F equal to nabla phi. It can be considered by the formula. Actually, if we want to know why, then by the formula actually we can write that F equal to nabla phi. Now our next discussion is on solenoidal and irrotational fields. So this is about the solenoidal and irrotational field. Now here we'll emphasize on two things. If we go to the last line, what we can see here, what's written here, curly field must be a solenoidal. We can prove it that curly field must be a solenoidal. Now what is solenoidal? We already know that when nabla dot A, when the divergence is actually 0, then it is called as solenoidal field. So when nabla dot nabla cross A equal to 0, then we can say that the curly field means nabla cross A is nothing but a curly field. So when nabla dot of that curly field is equal to 0, then we can say that curly field must be a solenoidal field. This is universal truth. Now Again in this slide, if we go to the last line, what's written here? Gradient field must be an irrotational field. That means gradient field must be an irrotational field. So here nabla of nabla cross nabla phi is equal to 0. That is, field must be an irrotational field. So by this formula, nabla of nabla phi is equal to 0. By this we can say that gradient field must be an irrotational field. Now we will solve a problem. The problem is prove that A equal to, if the vector is this, is a solenoidal. Now we already discussed about how a vector can be solenoidal. Now the condition is nabla dot A equal to 0. If nabla dot A equal to 0 we can prove, then we can say that A is a solenoidal vector. Now if nabla dot A not equal to 0, then A never can be a solenoidal vector, which we have to prove now. Now nabla dot A is equal to, if we expand it, then what we can write? Del del x I cap plus del del y j cap plus del del z k cap dot I cap ax plus j cap ay plus k cap az. This is the vector. Okay. Now if we do this, then finally by the dot product what we can get is equal to del del x ax plus del del y ay plus del del z az. So now the vector which we have today is A equal to 3y to the power 4 z square I cap plus 4x cube z square j cap minus 3x square y square k cap. So here ax equal to 3y to the power 4 z square, ay equal to 4x cube z square, az equal to minus 3x square y square. Now if we do del del x of ax, then what we are getting? 0. If we do del del ay del y, then what we are getting? 0. If we do del del az by del z, then we are getting 0. So if we put these equations over here, then what we are getting? Nabla dot A is equal to 0. So this is the condition. Therefore, since we are getting 0, so we can say that A is a solenoidal vector. If nabla dot A not equal to 0 we get, then it will be non-solenoidal vector. So a few minutes ago we already discussed about the dot product and also about the solenoidal vector. So since the nabla dot A not equal to 0 we have got, so finally we can say that A is a solenoidal vector. This is the procedure to do. Now if nabla cross A equal to 0, that will be irrotational. We'll do it in our next class, but before that we have to know well about this operation dot product and also about the irrotational vector. To find out this irrotational vector, so we have proved here nabla dot A equal to 0. So now I am giving you An assignment, that is your task, that is your homework, HW. A equal to 4x square z I cap minus 3y square j cap plus 4xy k cap. Prove that A is not a solenoidal vector. So this is your task for today. So thank you. This is about the gradient, divergence and curl, and also we have to practice some numerical, some problems with respect to gradient, divergence, curl to understand well.
Suppose we have a function of two variables. We have the variable x. We have the variable y. And we have z, which is a function of both x and y. Suppose that we pick one value for x, and we keep x at this one value as we change the value for y. Each time we change y by a small amount, z also changes by a small amount. At each point, the change in z divided by the change in y is given by the slope of this line. Red indicates a negative slope. Let's now pick a different value for x, and keep x at this new value. Again, at each point, the change in z divided by the change in y is given by the slope of this line. The change in z divided by the change in y is what we refer to as the partial derivative of z with respect to y. Every point on the graph has a value for the partial derivative of z with respect to y. Here, green indicates a positive value, and red indicates a negative value. Every point on the graph also has a value for the partial derivative of z with respect to x. In this case, the value for y is held constant, while the value for x changes. Suppose we represent the slope of this line with an arrow. The length and direction of the arrow indicates if the slope is positive or negative, and by how much. Every point has an arrow that represents the partial derivative of z with respect to x. Every point also has an arrow that represents the partial derivative of z with respect to y. If we add these two arrows together as vectors, then we'll get a new arrow. Let's call this new arrow the gradient of the function z. This arrow always indicates the direction in which z is increasing by the largest amount. The length of this arrow indicates by how much z is increasing in this direction. Much more information is available in the other videos on this channel. Please subscribe for notifications when new videos are ready.